Hi, Stacy. So thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I'm super excited to learn more about you, your story. So before we get to that, learning more about your story, relationship stories, I'd love to know more about yourself. How did you get into like a coaching business? Is there something you always wanted to do, or like how did you become an entrepreneurial coach?
It really just kind of unfolded naturally. It was one of those things where it was something I was looking for, answers I was looking for myself.
Mm.
And once I discovered that path and that connection that I had always been looking for in life, I'd always felt distance. Even as a kid, I always felt distance in relationships and always looking for something.
Yeah.
And once I finally came into that process, I was like, this is something that I'm actually called to do in this life. And it really just began this natural journey of how can I then help people with this as well, because I knew that I wasn't probably the only one that felt that way. So it was just kind of a natural progression. It took a little time, obviously, to transition from corporate life into coaching and figuring out how I could help others and really be of service to others in that way. So it really was just my own personal journey, which I think happens for many of us. So it's just a natural progression in that area.
Yeah, that's great. And how long have you been in coaching?
I started this journey. Let me see. I always have to think back. So I'm like, what year is this? It was in 2019
Okay.
was when I actually started the journey into
Yeah.
making that transition to actually switch from the corporate life into coaching.
Yeah, so it's like a 3 years now. And what did it actually make like going into coaching? Is there like a personal life, something happened, or you just realize one day like I need to be a coach? How do you come on to coach yourself?
Yeah, no, it wasn't one of those one day things. It was those signs from the universe, really. And it was all the little things that I was finally open to seeing. And yeah, I had a huge personal shift. In 2016, I had several family members at the same time get cancer,
Oh,
and they were all within my immediate family. And it was the hardest journey. And I knew it was going to be a rough year, but I could have never imagined what my life was going to unfold. And that was really my family was my foundation. And so I had four people within 12 months basically have cancer, and three of those lost their battle. And one of them, thankfully, is still here with us. And it really rocked my family. And I didn't realize how much my family was really pulling me through those busy weeks because I was very good at being successful in corporate life
yeah.
and just getting enough charge from my family. So that really just kind of unfolded and my life just kind of started to almost implode. And I had high stress, but I was still high functioning in the corporate life and really just like pushing my way through because that's what I knew how to do. And I
Mm,
wasn't really stopping and taking that time for myself to recover. And there was so much happening, but my marriage ended up falling apart in the middle of all that. So I basically, it's just like my entire life crumbled and my foundation was like, what do we do now?
yeah.
It was like a breaking point where I was literally on my knees crying and saying, I surrender. I surrender to whatever this is trying to teach me and to show me. And that's really what started the journey to really the self development and saying, okay, what is all of this here to teach me? And just getting really comfortable with being uncomfortable because I had avoided it for so long.
Yeah.
So that led me to a conversation with a friend, and she actually reached out to me for help on something because I'd written a couple children's books. And as we were talking, she was like, do you even know what I do now? And I'm like, I have no idea. We haven't talked in a couple of years. And she's like, well, I'm a coach and I have this seminar coming up that I'm hosting in town. And she's like, I'd love for you to come. Well, it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm working, I can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was meant to go to it. So that's really what started the journey was that one seminar I went to. And I was like, there's something here that I need to really look into and really start to own for myself. So it just kind of just following the little pieces along the way
Yeah.
that were always there. I just wouldn't look at them because I was so busy forcing myself through life, basically.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, so it happened like over the last years of like what happened to you and you became a coach, and that's been a great like you found your calling, like what you meant to be doing, and waking up every morning like energized and like feeling like I need to do something. I'm gonna create someone's and change their life in a better way. So moving forward, like we have a story to talk about by yourself, like your story on a relationship. How everything started. If you can start off, then I'll have some question to ask in regards to that.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Yeah, so if you can start telling about your story, like your relationship story, then I'll have some question to ask.
Okay, yeah. So my obviously I mentioned that my marriage fell apart. I was really struggling and I just didn't realize how to even make those connections. I just knew something was missing.
Mm,
And through all the work that I did, I just didn't know how to get that connection. So I'd been missing since I was a kid. My relationships had always been very disconnected. But like I said, I was very good. I was high functioning. I was very good to push through everything and not
yeah,
really be like, something's off here. So once I really started to actually, I went and had this training to be a coach. Even when I came back, my ex-husband was like, you're a completely different person.
hmm,
And that was like the beginning of it. That was like a 4 day first dive into it. And he was
yeah,
like, you're completely different. And I was like, yeah, I feel like different. And I even told my kids, I remember coming back from that training and I still had months and months of stuff to do for training, but I said, I'm just going to apologize to you now for all the things I've done to screw you up at this point, because I was like, I know I've been living things that weren't quite right. And so it was all of this work that I started doing for myself and really becoming personally responsible for the fact that yes, I am different. Discovering that I was empathic, I'm very sensitive to things, and that's very different from my family.
mm,
And so my experience was very different from theirs, but I didn't realize that. I just thought there was something wrong with me. I was like, why am I the only one that's affected by this? And so it's really becoming personally responsible to, it's okay to feel the way I feel, and I'm different, and everyone else is different. And just because they're reacting that way and I'm reacting this way doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. We're all truly here on our own experience. So through all of that, I've been able to create an amazing relationship with a wonderful man. And it's not that we're perfect, we're perfectly matched to help each other grow and evolve, because we both kind of touch on points within ourselves that
yeah,
make you sit back and you're like, oh, wait, I can either go the way I used to go, or I can step up and say, what is this telling me? So it's really been that experience that has allowed me to really grow and to help others just get that awareness for themselves, that there's nothing wrong with them, because as women, especially as moms, we think if
yeah,
we don't have it right, we're wrong. So
yeah.
it's been a thing that's just been a huge blessing.
That's great. So what actually changed from like who you used to be and compared to right now? You're in an amazing relationship, right, like you mentioned right now. So what actually changed within yourself and you seeing them kind of difference?
Yeah. So for me, and that's a really great question, because I think sometimes that's the hardest thing. You're like, I've traveled this path.
Yeah.
What was it? And there are so many factors. And for me, it was really understanding who I was and the fact that I was sensitive, that it wasn't that my brain was basically keeping me safe. And anytime those uncomfortable situations would come up, my habit was to turn the other way. I just wanted it to be peaceful and I wanted to fix it. I needed it to be peaceful for me because I couldn't handle it. And really it was to find out that I could be experience that, but also find harmony in the fact that there's conflict and there's chaos. And to really be like, I can sit in the middle of this and see it and experience it and not be so tied to it and react to it and not want to run away from it. So it's really becoming aware of the fact that I could retrain my brain and that automatic habit that I had, that I was just like, nope, got to get away from this situation. You're freaking me out. I can't deal with it. And that was really the shift for me, was really to see that I could be in the stress, have stress around me in the chaos, understand why it was bringing that to me, and then how to shift out of it.
Yeah. And like it being a self-awareness, like you need to know like what's happening to you, and then obviously gonna make some adjustment and changes you need to in order to do that. So like obviously you experienced like well something is not right. I need to make some changes, and you took action and got the results. So moving forward, those who experience them kind of like a trauma, or like you mentioned, like you had four people got cancer in the same year, like three couldn't make it. I'm so sorry to for your loss, and one is still in that position. They're struggling. So seeing someone in us that kind of moment, and also like your relationships falling apart, and you have to recreate yourself and a new version of yourself. How someone like yourself, if they're going through like kind of losses, if they're going through like a relationship crisis, they're on verge of it, how they can tackle that? Like what kind of mindset do you recommend for someone to have in order to be best version of themselves and like enjoy the rest of their life?
Yeah, no, it's a really great point. And I find there's a couple of things. One thing that I do every single night is when I go to bed, I put the day at bed to rest,
Mm.
and I do it consciously. And no matter what's happened, whether great or middle of the road or not so great, it's I leave the day where it's at, and I leave it with gratitude and love and appreciation, because that allows me to go to bed and actually have a good night's rest,
Yeah.
and allows me to actually be free during that time and wake up with a different to start the new day, because that truly is a new day. And many times if we can't let those things go, then we're carrying it and we're just repeating that over and over again. So
Mm.
whether you've had a great day, or whatever, you can have a great day the next day too, but really just to leave everything with gratitude and love. And it's really a conscious thing I do every single night when I lay in bed, because that has been a huge difference. So even if my husband and I have not been on the best page that day, I leave it with love and move on. And the other thing is, for me, what I love, the things that I that really drive me forward is understanding that about myself. The highest one I have right now is joy. And if it's not going to bring me joy, how can I look at it differently?
Mm.
And even like, I'll even give you an example of last night. Like, no one wanted to mow the lawn. We've got a storm coming in, another hurricane coming into Florida. I was like, this has to get done, but I had so many things to do, plus dinner, plus a long meeting. And I was like, okay, how can I bring joy to this? Because this is me serving my family and serving myself by taking
Yeah.
care of these things. And so for me, it's looking for how can I bring joy into these things? And if it's truly something that doesn't bring me joy, is it something I can push off? If not, and it's truly how can I serve from a place of joy? And that's been a big thing. But joy is what drives me. And so I don't know what drives you. Some people it's freedom, some people it's health, whatever that is, to lean into that has been. So it's one, to leave the day where it's at, and two, to start that day then with whatever drives you the most.
Yeah, for me, like it's a gratitude. So gratitude is like been number one
Yeah.
priority for me, and I know like that time like I'm not grateful for things I have. Like I feel anxious, I feel stressed, and I have to be look through my gratitude journal, and I look like so many things I have and have not think about it. I probably have like a one problem, and my all
Yeah.
focus on a one problem. But there is a million things I can be grateful for, and the mind when you're stressed out or like anxious or panicking mode, you can't really think about anything. So yeah, if you're not grateful or if you don't have the kind of joy you mentioned, you can't express it to other people. You can't be yourself. You can't be in a position like uh, the energy, the positive energy, you can't go for flow through it like other person. So yeah, that's a great, like everyone got their own thing, like they need to find out what actually keeps them excited, keep them moving forward, and they need to find that then in order to like being like overcoming the obstacle they are. Like I lost both of my parents very early age. I don't know, about like age 13, they both died in the same year within 3 months time, and
Wow.
it was a tough time. Like 2 years I've been in a depression. Like I was on antidepressant medication. I was losing my hair age 14, 15. I was losing about 400 hairs a day. Every time I go to sleep and when I wake up, there is a bunch of hair is falling because I was so stressed out. I got panic attacks, anxiety, a lot of other health issues came along with it. Even though right now, till the day, like, practicing mindfulness and everything, still like sometimes I feel like I got some panicking is that I don't want to take any kind of medication because I know it slows me down. So I'd be natural way, I just want to focus on the day. So yeah, it's not easy, but you have to accept it whatever not in your control, and you have to keep moving forward and find what you can do, what's in your control, and be best version of yourself. So yeah, those listening, Stacy, like now you made the change and you seeing like a difference. Like what would be your advice would be for like the past Stacy, like when you didn't know like how to overcome like the struggle you had to compare it to right now the joyful JC Stacy. So what would be your past younger version of yourself? What would advice would you give?
It's interesting you asked that question. And first I want to say that obviously gratitude has served you so well because you have been through so much. And that's one of the things that I always remember is, I'm glad you brought that up, is that sometimes when you have nothing else to say, you have nothing else that you can do, is just to close your eyes and say thank you.
Yeah.
And it's really just to help start that. So I love the fact that you've shared that. And you've obviously created so much with your life and are bringing that message to everyone else. So I'm so glad you shared that, because it means a lot to hear that. And it's great to see you doing that. So my past version, it's interesting because I think of it as almost like a completely separate life. I don't know if you think of that. Like it's
Mm,
you don't even really recognize the old version of you.
yeah,
And there are many times I say I look back on that woman, and that's me raising my children when they were small. And I have so much love for that woman because I know she was in such a hard spot. And yet she kept moving steps forward. And that's why I'm here today.
yeah,
And even this week, I was watching something on YouTube and I got done, and it brings up little things on the side. And I scrolled down and I'm looking. I looked at my phone because on my computer, I looked back up and there's a message. And my family called me, my friends and family call me Stace. And
okay,
it said, Stace, if you're watching this, this is where you're supposed to be. I'm so proud of you. Keep going. And it
okay,
was just another one of those messages that I was just like, this random thing. So I
yeah,
snapshotted it. And so I think it's constantly like, even back then, I knew it was just one foot forward. I didn't know for me being, and I don't know how if you felt this way, like being in that moment is so painful, but I knew that in 3 months, I would be completely different.
it's
If
true.
I just kept moving forward, I was looking to that future place
Yeah,
and just saying, I'm here today. And some days were better than others. Some days you just get out of bed and you just
yeah,
function. But I knew in 3 months' time, I'm going to be 3 months away from this feeling and closer to where I want to be. And so I still think that way anytime things come up if I'm working towards something. But that was the biggest thing that I'm so glad that I had that mindset. Like you said, it's all about mindset that I had that because if I had focused on that moment, I probably wouldn't have moved very far,
yeah.
honestly. So even looking back, yes, it's that keep going. Just like the message I got from YouTube this week was, if you're here, you keep
Yeah.
going. You're going to be so proud of you should be so proud of yourself. So it's just incredible how those things come back.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Like, I really like it. Like you mentioned, wherever position you are, the situation you are right now. If you look back, like 3 years from now, I mean, 3 months from now, you're gonna see like a different things happen, and 3 months from now, you're gonna see like a lot of things change. Because I experienced the same thing in this year. I diagnosed with IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. I bleed through my bowel, and then my iron level was really, really low. That's why I'm feeling dizzy, fainting, and everything. I couldn't walk
Wow.
properly. And then they put me iron infusion, and after that, a really bad side effect happened. My heart was palpitating. I felt like I'm having a heart attack. Then after the same night I came from the infusion, that night I felt like I'm having a heart attack. The first time ever I called an ambulance myself, and the ambulance goes, they're gonna took 3 hours to come. Then I don't know how to get there. I called in taxi and I go inside the taxi because my wife can't come because we got a disabled child as well. He needed really, really support and help. Like she can't come middle of the three in the night a.m. So I was on my own. I don't know who else called because everyone lives a bit far away. I don't want to bother them because I don't know what's going on. This is not time for like someone can call me, say emergency, so I have to go. I can't wait for half an hour till someone comes, and I'm going the taxi. I don't know how I go out and everything. And that day I felt like I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna live. And they actually tested everything. It's not heart attack. It was like a panic attack because my hormones and everything changed because the reaction to the iron infusion, my body couldn't take it. So yeah, that time I felt like everything's gonna go, but then I came out, and then it was tough for 2 3 weeks, and after that they give like a colonoscopy, endoscopy, and everything. They found out the inflammatory bowel disease. They gave me medication. I was on and off. Within like 2 days I started feeling better. So that day I felt like I'm not gonna make it. This is my last day probably, and coming back like after 4 5 weeks, I'm completely better. It's been a life changing. Even though right now I'm dealing with the dizziness and everything because of my ear infection, and sometimes I feel like this thing never gonna go away. But
Yeah.
like you said, looking forward to 3 months from now, that thing's probably gonna go away, and I'll forget about it, and I'm gonna look forward to like another new problem. That's life how it goes on, isn't it? That's interesting.
Yeah. I know it's an incredible story. And you never quite know like when we go through those things because
Yeah.
you're just like, why, what in the world was this about? But then, you come out more resilient and stronger on the other side and you start to say, oh, okay, there's definitely something here. And I'm so glad that you're doing better and that everything was fine because you have a bigger mission here on this in this world. So I'm glad you're still here doing that.
Yeah, I think so. I try my best. Sometimes I feel dizzy and everything. Like I need to move forward. So if I can't do like a video call because I have to move around with my head, uh, I don't want to be like disrespectful to someone. They probably gonna think I'm ignoring them because I'm looking
Yeah.
this way and that way. Because I feel dizzy and I feel like I'm gonna faint. So that's why I have to look that side. But sometimes they probably don't understand what's going on with me. So I turn off the camera. I was like, I'm gonna do just the audio, so make sure my podcast listeners can just listen to it rather than like YouTubers. Like
Yeah.
we don't have like a big YouTube anyway, so just a few people here and there watches it. So we haven't focused on that yet. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I like keep moving forward. If I don't do that, if I be in my bed or like complaining, that symptom is gets bigger
Yeah.
because now you're Googling, now you're thinking all negative thoughts, what could go wrong? And 50% of that will be like my brain created them illnesses rather than me, or like actual illnesses itself. So yeah, we have to find the positive things. Like that's why even though I'm not feeling well, I'm doing the podcast after you, then I'll have another podcast is coming up. So keeping moving forward, like this is life, I think. As long as I'm not in a deathbed, keep moving forward. So I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing with you as well.
Yeah, especially if it's the things that light you up. Like you really want to show up for those. And you're like,
Yeah,
this is what it probably energizes you to do these.
yeah.
So it's like how to find that balance and that harmony of how can I manage my health and still show up. And honestly, I think if it had been me today and you said, hey, Staci, look, I'm dizzy and I'm just gonna turn this off, I'd have been like, you do whatever you need to do and been like just fine with it. Because I think we all understand that, especially as entrepreneurs and having these passions that life does go on, but when we're committed to the message and what we're here to do, then we will do everything we can to show up. It may just be different than what we anticipated and be like, hey, can you have a little grace? And most people are gonna be like, absolutely, because I can't imagine. So thank you for doing that.
No problem. You're most welcome, and thank you for like you coming to the show. So a lot of people like they don't know like what's going on behind the scene. Like I'm smiling here. You're probably smiling here. I have no clue what's happened to your day. You have no clue what's happened to my day. Probably they seeing on the social media. They thinking like I'm having a best life because I don't post nothing. My personal life is just a blank. No one sees it. I don't post anything. Like whilst I'm eating, what I'm doing, no one knows about it. So probably everyone's thinking like my life is going straight line, everything's perfect. But there is an up and there is a big down. There is a big up as well. So that's how life works. And yeah, the more people understand that, the more easier it will be. Like when you're trying to be happy, 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 the life doesn't go happy. Like even though you try so many things, even though you're great at mindfulness, you are so positive and a positive thinker, and you are a human being and you're gonna have like ups and downs. You're gonna have a good
Yeah,
days, bad days. And we have to keep moving forward and get inspiration, people like yourself, like telling them kind of stories. Life goes on and you have to make changes, adapt and everything. If the relationship not working out, then you have to make the changes to move to the new one and see what's wrong. If is there something wrong with yourself or you identify like the problem, you need to work on yourself and
yeah,
then bring it back to others. So
yeah.
yeah, Stacy, it's been a great conversation with you. I really enjoyed it. I hope my audience enjoyed it too. So we're coming to the end of the podcast. If anyone wants to learn more about yourself, your journey, or like reach out to you, where is the best place to find you?
I'm on Instagram for daily stuff. So it's I am Coach Staci on there. And I also have a website. It's www.staciogle.com. So you can find more on there for what I help people with programs and everything. But if you want day-to-day stuff, inspiration, and see what kind of crazy stuff I do, then go on there. And it's funny, I don't know if you do anything about animal animal medicine cards, but I drew one today. And this one, I smiled because this one visits me often because it was what is it that I need to bring today? And I drew the hawk for us, which is messenger. So I thought that was perfect
Yeah,
for what you and I were about to do together. So I hope this blesses you on the rest of your day. And thank you for what you're doing in the world and to keep doing it.
you're most welcome. The pleasure was mine for you coming to this show. I wish you best of luck with your personal life and career. And I hope you have a wonderful day ahead and the Christmas and New Year coming soon.
All
So
right.
you enjoy
Thank
them
you.
as well.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed and got some value from it. So, those who are interested to learn more about Stacy or reach out to her and work with her, then visit her website or you can reach out on her social media platforms. So, until then, I'll talk to you in our next episode. Take care.